organized by the International Centre Goa in association with Media Information and Communication Centre of India, Frederick Ebert Stephen India, and the Goa High Court Bar Association. I will request Director Ms. Nandini Sahai to inaugurate the seminar by lighting traditional lamp, and I also invite Advocate Vishnu Prasad Lavate and Mr. Colin Karim to join me. Good evening, friends, and a very warm welcome to this today's seminar on judicial accountability and role of media for strengthening democracy, which has been organized by the International Centre in association with the Media Information and Communication Centre of India. Well, today the Indian judiciary is arguably the most powerful judiciary in the world. Superior courts, that is the Supreme Court and the High Courts, have jurisdiction not only over executive action but also over legislation. And this has been extended even to review the validity of constitutional amendments. Public institutions, including the judiciary, are expected to carry out their roles and responsibilities with integrity and efficiency in the service of the public. Lord Dalworth Acton once observed that, and I quote, "Power tends to corrupt and absolute power corrupts absolute." Similar seems to be the case with the Indian judiciary. They are slowly losing their credibility. To keep a track and to assess the judiciary's role in a democracy, Media Information and Communication Centre of India, in collaboration with Frederick Ebert Stiftung, have been organizing a series of seminars on this issue since 2004, focusing mainly on the role of judiciary in strengthening democracy. This year too, we take up the Judicial Accountability Bill, as the bill is yet to see the light of the day at Rajya Sabha. It's sad to see that in the constitutional scheme of the world's largest democracy, owing solely to the lack of initiative from the country's judiciary, the political executive who controls the parliament is now to determine the contents of impending legislation. With freedom comes responsibility, and the Indian judiciary has failed to understand that its independence entails its accountability. Now we have reached a point where we entrust the independence of our constitution's watchdog in the hands of the executive. The state of affairs probably sounds worse than it actually is, but nonetheless we come to this and we hope the government will be kind enough to give the Indian polity a reason to have confidence in the administration of justice. In 2009, the government has said that it will introduce a fresh bill in Parliament to replace the 4-decade-old law dealing with the removal of corrupt judges with a new and effective law of quick action, a comprehensive judges standards and accountability bill 2010. In March 2012, the Lok Sabha approved the bill, which provides for a mechanism for investigation against judges. The bill, introduced in December 2010, was brought to the Lok Sabha with fresh amendments in December 2011. Also, a day after the government managed to get the Judicial Accountability Bill passed in the Lok Sabha, Team Anna attacked the government for going back on its promise to bring judicial corruption within the ambit of the law. Team Anna member Advocate Prashant Bhushan said that while judicial misconduct was addressed in the bill, there was only provision for removal of the judge and not for register a formal police complaint or initiate criminal proceedings. The bill, among other things, also requires judges to declare details of their assets and liabilities as well as that of their family members, which has not gone down too well with most of the judges. Justice N. Santosh Hegde, former judge of the Supreme Court and former Lokayukta of Karnataka, regretted the Supreme Court judges hesitating to make details of their assets public. He said that, why are judges hesitating to declare details about the assets they possess? Judges are not above the law. Why can't they be transparent? The bill also includes restraining judges from making unwarranted comments against the conduct of any constitutional authority. According to the revised bill, any judge who makes oral comments against other constitutional authorities and individuals would render himself or herself liable for judicial misconduct. But late Justice J.S. Verma had some reservations about this clause. He said that and I'm quoting, that the judges should not comment, that is perfectly alright, but then who is going to decide which observation amounts to judicial misconduct? I think that is a matter which requires more reflection. End of quote. A one-day consultative session was organized in Delhi by NICI and NPS on August 7, 2012 to discuss the pros and cons of this bill, with Justice retired A.P. Shah, former Chief Justice of Delhi High Court, leading the discussion. The participants called for deletion of section 9 to 16 of the bill dealing with the forming of a complaints scrutiny panel, besides the oversight committee. Justice Shah opined that the complaints scrutiny panel, which is proposed to be formed at the Supreme Court and each High Court, comprising serving judges to do preliminary vetting of complaints, would not be able to function properly. The question of transparency and how the media should report complaints against judges also came up for discussion. The discussants also sought deletion of a provision in the bill mandating in-camera proceedings and another section blocking the supply of documents relating to the complaint. They also shot down the proposal that the prima facie review should come as a reasoned order, stating that this would consume too much time of the oversight committee. A 2-year cooling off period was also mooted for all judges post-retirement when they would not be able to take up any other job. In spite of all the loopholes and reservations, the bill was presented to the Rajya Sabha at the recent September 2013 session. Even as the government managed to get the judicial standards and accountability bill passed in the Lok Sabha, it faced embarrassment in Rajya Sabha when opposition parties as well as those supporting the UPA government from outside forced the deferment of a bill that aims to allow the border security force to operate in places other than border areas. The government's attempt to hold a discussion on the much delayed whistleblower bill was also stalled by the opposition, which sought more time to study it. But the Rajya Sabha took up and cleared a bill to amend the constitution to set up a judicial appointments commission, replacing the collegium system. Law Minister Kapil Sibal, leader of opposition, Arun Jaitley and several other members were of the view that the present system of appointing judges to Supreme Court and High Court lacked transparency and accountability. Government and opposition were united in criticizing the functioning of the judiciary and sought to scrap the collegium system of appointing judges to higher courts, saying it is essential to restore the delicate balance of power which has been disturbed. In India, when one speaks about the judiciary, the first thing which comes to mind is pendency of cases instead of justice. Shockingly, over 3 crore cases are pending in courts across the country. The numbers have increased since 2011. The figures appear to be quite alarming and surprisingly are growing by the day. These figures have been revealed by the Supreme Court in its latest update of pending cases and vacancies in Indian courts as of March 2013. One of the reasons for the creation of huge backlog of cases is that India is facing alarming shortage of judges. There are 275 judges post vacant in 24 high courts and 3,170 in lower courts. Some courts also experience shortage of available courtrooms. The number of judges in a court is decided by dividing the average institution of main cases during the last 5 years by the national average or the average rate of disposal of main cases per judge per year in that high court, whichever is higher. India, a country of 1.1 billion people, has approximately 11 judges for every million people, compared with roughly 110 judges per million in the United States. India's Justice Ministry last year called for an increase of 50 judges per million people by 2013, but it was unclear how the government would pay for such a massive overhaul. One good news is that the retired judges seeking to speed the wheels of justice by overhauling the judiciary's antiquated record system with the latest technology. JCB Judicial Technologies Limited, founded in 2008 by 73-year-old retired Justice G.C. Maruka, has pioneered a web-based system that enables judges to streamline court operations, schedule hearings and dispose of cases more efficiently than the paper-based system relied on by most of India's courts. WorldJudiciary.org focuses on lower courts and is already operational in 3 lower courts of the eastern Indian state of Bihar. In all of this, where does the media play a role? The activist role of the judiciary has given the fourth estate a new role which the framers of our constitution would have never imagined. The proliferation of 24/7 news channels and their insatiable hunger for breaking news has sometimes resulted in a trial by the media without understanding the seriousness of the issues involved. Ideally, the media should have nothing to do with the dispensation of justice, apart apart from doing a good job of reporting the events and reports, and whenever possible, passing intelligent or informed comments about particular cases. However, we all know that the media can play to the gallery, whipping up emotions and appealing to popular passions. The role of the media here ought to be that of reporting the excesses or violations, objectively so as to encourage judicial discipline and judicial activism, not adventurism, not activism. The court, for instance, can order the government to prepare a welfare scheme but not undertake the task of framing it itself. That is not venture out of its area of expertise. Democracy depends on an informed citizenry, and the job of the journalist is to inform the public. Journalists can help mobilize public opinion enough to get a PI. They can also contribute to judicial interpretation. We all know that law does not stand still. Every country has to work out its constitution according to its problems, needs and demands. The judicial interpretations are based on the realities of the situation, which a responsible and ethical media can help bring to the fore. Hence, this is not too great an expectation. The judiciary and the media could be partners in a new relationship working towards the establishment of the rule of law, without which there can be no dispensation of justice. Ethical journalism will surely help develop discipline in the judicial economic system. The delays and inefficiency in the mainstream judicial system could be attributed to the indiscipline that has crept into way, litigation that the adjudicatory process is managed. Cases linger on for years. A vibrant media can motivate judges to be more effective in case management and speeding up judicial work, which in turn would do well to strengthen democracy. Before I end, I would like to quote former Delhi and Chennai High Court Judge A.P. Shah. He said, and I quote, "Judicial independence is not the personal privilege of the individual judge, but a responsibility cast on him. Democracy expects openness. Don't wait for Parliament to compel judges to disclose assets and undermine judicial independence." End of quote. I hope the seminar will come up with some constructive suggestions for speedy dispensation of justice as well as more accountability and transparency in the judiciary. It is clear that a healthy democracy and an accountable judiciary cannot sustain without each other. Lastly, I would like to express my sincere thanks to Mr. Rajesh Padyal of FTS, unfortunately he has not been able to make it today, for supporting us in organizing this seminar, and of course to the Bar Council, for supporting us, and the Goa High Court Bar Association for supporting us in organizing this, and to Vicky, Mr. Palikari, who is representing Vicky here, for supporting us also. Thank you very much.
I now request Advocate Vishnu Prasad Lavande, Vice President of Goa High Court Bar Association, to give his remarks.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of our Bar Association, I would like to state that we have always been committed to assist the High Court in providing justice to the people in the state of Goa. Law and order exist for the purpose of establishing justice, and when this fails in this purpose, they become dangerously structured dams that block the flow of social justice. As far as our Bar Association is concerned, I would like to state that we are committed in providing upholding of the rule of law, to promote high standards of the profession, to watch, which is the main object, to watch the state of laws, the progress of legislation and administration of justice, and take such steps as may be necessary for the progress and the reforms. To express opinion on proposed legislation for which we are here in this debate, and matters of interest, and make representation in their behalf. To take necessary steps to prevent and remedy abuse of the law or maladministration. Conduct and hold seminars is one of our object, and we are extremely thankful to the International Center of Goa to have this seminar in association with us and MICCI. I extend my sincere appreciation for all those who have made it to come here. We have our distinguished speaker with us today to discuss on the issue of accountability of the judges and the independence of the judiciary. We have with us the senior advocate Mr. Jayant Gurgaonkar, practice court of Goa. We were also to be accompanied by Advocate General A.N.S. Nadkarni, who had not may arrive in a short time, and also Cleophas, who were keynote speakers on these issues. Presently, I have to make it known what is exactly the preamble of the Act, that is the Judicial Accountability Act. The preamble is this: to lay down the judicial standards and provide for accountability of judges and establish credible and expedient mechanism for investigating into individual complaints for misbehavior or incapacity of a judge of the Supreme Court or the High Court, and to regulate the procedure for such investigation and for the presentation of an address by Parliament to the President in relation to the proceeding for removal of a judge and for matters connected therewith or incidental to it. We will appreciate in the recent times all the judges are under the radar of the public scrutiny. A lot of cases have been reported where the credibility of the judiciary is being eroded, apart from the two other wings under the democratic setup, that is the state and the union, executive and the legislature. Before it is completely eroded and destroyed, the fate of the people who rely finally on the judiciary, there is a need for this act to be implemented, and for the purpose of implementation of this act, various issues will arise as far as where all this time the judiciary was independently, after the oath having taken, discharging the function, would they allow one stray person, one lay man to come before the investigating committee, which is the oversight committee which has been formulated under this act, and become subject to that one man's complaint? So in this regard, we have a fine balance to demarcate where the independence will overlap or where the accountability, judicial accountability, will be enforced as far as this act is concerned. Earlier, the case before us, we know about the first case wherein Justice Ramaswamy was being impeached, but it was not successful because of the subterfuge which was adopted by the Congress government at that particular time, staying away from the voting. Now, in this regard, if earlier the legislature, earlier the Lok Sabha, 100 and odd people, and the Rajya Sabha, some 50 people, who decide upon the eligibility of removing a judge, today with this act, one person can lay a threat to the judge if he is incapable, if he misbehaves either with the clients, either with the bar members, or in any other way. So, this entire mechanism has been provided under this act, and speakers will enlighten us on the final issues regarding whether it is advantageous, how far it will infringe upon the independence of the judiciary as far as their rights are concerned for the free and fair judiciary. Therefore, this seminar, although I do not see many participants here, but still there is going to be an insightful discussion, and the discussion which is going to be had here, is going to be productive and insightful. I am very pleased to have the speakers at this seminar, and I look forward for an interesting discussion from what the speakers are going to enlighten us. My sincere appreciation for the support which has been given by the IC Goa International Center and MICC for having this function and organizing it in association with the High Court Bar Association. I would like to just state some of the things which may be taken care of by the speakers. As far as our RTI Act is concerned, entire state as well as the union and all the other authorities have come under the Right to Information Act, and nothing is a secret except all those exceptions which are contained in it. But the judiciary was not within, did not come within the ambit of this. And the Supreme Court judge, even earlier Chief Justice has remarked to see that whatever order which will be passed by the registrar of the Supreme Court is going to be final without there being an appeal. So therefore I would also request, as far as the role of the judiciary is concerned and the independence of the judiciary is concerned vis-a-vis the implementation, passing of the bill as regard the accountability of the Judges Act, then on the selection of the judges, which is very, very important. Today you will see that for any judge's post, there is a lobbying which has been going on. So whether in this act a serious concern has been shown and whether any such kind of thing as regards selection of the judges has been eliminated or not. And accountability concept is very wide as far as administration is concerned, and as far as even the judgment's delivery is concerned. One is on the administration side, one is on the dispensation of justice is concerned. So with this, I would like to thank everybody for participating in this seminar and making this interesting seminar. I request that our speakers who are present here are going to enlighten us on this area, democracy and the role of the accountability of the judges, independence of the judiciary, and what is the role of the media for dissemination of the information. Because if the media was not there, all those things which are today brought to the knowledge of the people and the notice of the people regarding the corruption and other incidences, we would not have been aware at all. So media also is playing a major role in this, and therefore the speakers will enlighten us on all these aspects. I am thankful to all the people who are present here and for participating here. I will bear with our speakers for further discussion. Thank you very much.
I will now request Mr. Colin Curry, elected trustee of ICG and trustee MICC, to give his vote of thanks.
Welcome to you all from the International Center Goa. I'm sitting on the board of trustees here, as well as I'm one of the trustees of Media Information Communication Center of India. So we welcome you on behalf of the ICT as well as Media Information Communication Center of India. I'd like to say that from the year 2004, we've been holding a lot of seminars and conventions in regard to judiciary and the media. And there were a lot of recommendations that have been made, which have been taken up seriously, and also we made sure that these recommendations were implemented, which they have been to an extent. So we're happy to provide this platform for people to come here to discuss these important topics and subjects. Unfortunately, I think there's too much going on in the judiciary outside today for a lot of people not to have attended here today, but we were expecting about 40 people to come in here. I'd like to thank firstly the Goa High Court Bar Association. This is not the first time, but several times they have come in with us on various judicial topics that they have taken up. I'd like to thank the for always being there for us and giving us this platform to discuss such important topics. I'd like to thank Frederick Ebert Stiftung. They are the people who always fund such seminars and conventions that we have, and without them it would not be possible, especially Mr. Rajeshwar Dayal, who couldn't make it here today. All the chairpersons and the speakers that are going to deliberate today and tomorrow, and of course the media that is present here and all of you. We wish all success to this seminar, and we hope the deliberations will be of great value for everybody who is present here today. Thank you once again.